Hello, I'm Martin Dowden, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, all the news, views and analysis you need on Wednesday, the 17th of September. Today, we're taking a look at the lower leagues. St Johnstone are flying high in the second tier. Will their championship charge continue all the way to the title? Ross County have plenty of top-flight experience in the dugout. Will that help turn around poor form? Only 5 points separate the top 8 sides in League One. Early days, but will anyone break away? And are Kelty Hearts and Cove Rangers already destined to finish in the bottom 2? In League 2, Spartans and East Kilbride are tussling it out at the top, and at the bottom are Stranraer in danger of being caught by Edinburgh City despite their points deduction.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Delighted to welcome our guest today. It's Ryan Flynn, the Arbroath megastar. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us. And Craig Telfer, a View from the Terrace presenter and podcaster. Ryan, I'll start with you. Let's start with your season at Arbroath. How do you rate your chances of continuing what's been a pretty strong start?
I mean, it has been a good start. I saw one at the weekend, of course. I think it's going to be a tough season. I just think being the part-time team, over the duration of the season, it's going to be tough. I just think you've never got that strong squad that when it comes to the winter months and the knocks and niggles and possibly suspensions along the way, it could be a tough season. But with a little bit of momentum coming up, it's quite a close-knit group. You're hoping you can keep that momentum and sort of roll with it as long as possible and get the points on the board, because I think teams that are at the bottom of the league that are struggling, just at the start, they sort of see that Arbroath have picked up points. It just puts a little bit of pressure on the teams below us at the moment.
You remember, I'm a seasoned Scottish journalist. I've been to Arbroath in the middle of winter, and I don't think anyone likes going and playing there. I don't know. What about you, Craig?
I think Arbroath have had a really good start to the season. I watched Aaron Muirhead's post-match interview after the win over Ross County the other week, and he said that was the kind of victory that makes people take up and notice Arbroath. And to be honest, I was surprised if people hadn't already noticed what Arbroath were doing that they should have done, because I think that from the very first game of the season against Ayr United on BBC Scotland, after about the first 15 minutes or so, once Arbroath settled into the game, you're like, this team are actually pretty good. All the various constituent parts that they've got are exactly what you want from a part-time team that are competing in that level. You've got a good goalkeeper in Aidan McAdams. Tam O'Brien, for a long time, has been one of the best centre-back, in fact, one of the best players full stop in part-time football. Ryan has, might talk himself down a wee bit, but he's been such an important player since he has come into Arbroath. His experience and know-how in the middle of the park, very difficult player to play against. Quality around him, and a guy like Nikolai Todorov up front, someone who really seems to be relishing taking into that principal striker's role, scored a really good goal up at County, and it would have been a sore one to take a wee bit of pacing against Dunfermline at the weekend. But I think when you look at Arbroath compared to the rest of the teams around them, I think it could be a long season, but I wouldn't have them as immediate favourites for 9th or 10th. I think there's poorer teams in the division to them.
Right, one team that is getting a lot of notice, of course, is St Johnstone. Remain unbeaten after 4 games, heavily favoured to go on and take that league. From your point of view, Ryan, do you think anyone can stop them from what you've seen in the early stages?
From the early stages, no. They've definitely hit the ground running. It's the player Josh McPake that everyone's taken up and taken notice of. I just think the style of football they've got, the attacking intent throughout the game, every game they go into, they look to dominate the game, dominate possession. And they've done that in every game that they've played in. I think they drew against Morton, but it was sort of a wonder goal from Eamon Brophy that sort of got a point for them that day, and sort of they managed to hang on. But even by all counts, that day Josh McPake was still outstanding and was running the game. I think having a captain in Jason Holt, who for me is still a Scottish Premiership player, even at his age, I think he's still running the game, dominating the game, one of the fittest players in the park week in, week out. And then they look assured at the back of, they've got Baird at the back. They're a team that I think they'll drop some points along the way, but I think they'll be definitely the champions at come the end of the season.
Craig, Ryan's mentioning Josh McPake there. I was interested to look at his trajectory over the last year or so. He was sort of not really delivering, I would say, looking to maybe leave St Johnstone. There was no interest in him, and then suddenly he turns it around like this. It says a lot about him to be able to have turned that around.
I think there's some players, when you start off at a club as big as Rangers, as he did in his early career, and had sort of like quite a promising loan spell at Queen's Park, didn't quite work out for him, then going back to Rangers, had to drop all the way down to Stirling Albion before moving back to St Johnstone. And sometimes it just takes, like, for some really talented players, like the penny to drop. Sometimes it happens earlier for others, and in McPake's case, he seems to be in a really positive environment with Simo Valakari, who he seems like, from what I've heard and what I've listened to him, seems like a really positive guy. Seems like he has made St Johnstone a fun team to play for, like compared to maybe his predecessors. And I think McPake is the kind of player that's benefiting from that. You just need to see his goal from the weekend against Wraith Rovers. I mean, it's the sort of 88th minute when the ball breaks through. He's absolutely knocking his pan in to get up there to join Sven Sprangler, and he gets the pass played into him, and he's got an empty net to finish into. But I think that he is a player that is making St Johnstone fans fall back in love with football. It's been a difficult couple of years for them. I think that after that cup double, they never really built on it. And I think that they kind of circled the drain a wee bit until they were relegated into the Championship. But in players like McPake and some of the guys that Ryan mentioned there, it's a good time to be supporting St Johnstone.
Ryan, the style of football is quite interesting, because we could all see what Simo Valakari was trying to do in the Premiership. He just couldn't quite get it going given the difficulty they had. Have you been impressed by the way he stuck to that principle and then managed to get it to work so quickly and early on in the Championship?
I am, but I think nowadays managers can be a little bit more stubborn that this is the philosophy, this is how I play, this is why you employed me. I'd probably go credit to St Johnstone from the board. Like, I think when you come down, you're sort of playing that style. As you say, it didn't quite happen. They did get relegated in the end. You could go a case of, right, let's get a ready-made manager that knows how to get out of this league. But they stuck with him, and then I think they're getting reaping the benefits from that. And the fans are loving it as well. Simo Valakari is producing the best football, and it could be Championship football, winning football. That I think ultimately that's the goal. Obviously, you want fans bums off the seats. You want players like Josh McPake that fans want to go and watch, but at the end of the day, fans want to see winning football at the same time, and that's what it's a perfect blend at the moment. And I think when you come up, it could be a case of if they come up and then they come up like Falkirk, where you don't have to change, you can keep playing that brand of football and possibly survive. So I think long term it could be more beneficial for St Johnstone.
Let's look at Ross County. Obviously, Tony Docherty's in there now, Callum Davidson in as well, a lot of experience. Craig, why do you think they're finding it so difficult in the Championship?
I think when you looked at Ross County's transfer business in the summer, a lot of the players they were signing, you'd be like, wow, that's a really good signing. Wow, that's a really good signing. Remember when they brought in like Declan Gallagher and Ross Docherty, who had finished in 4th place in the Premiership with Dundee United the previous season. You thought, these look really smart business. And then, sorry to bring back in St Johnstone, but when St Johnstone were signing like Morgan Boys and Regan Tumulty and Jack Baird, not necessarily the flashiest names, you'd fancy Ross County immediately. I actually think that Ross County's business, they've signed too many good players. I know that sounds like a daft thing to say, but I think that they've got too many players that want to do the same kind of thing, particularly in the middle of the park. When they signed like Dean Cornelius and Jamie Lindsay as well, just too many guys. Or was it Liam Lindsay, Jamie Lindsay? One of the Lindsays. They signed him to play in the middle of the park, and it's just too many guys that want to do the same thing. And I think there's a job to try and fit them all in, and then to try and manage the players who aren't involved. I mean, certainly not to the extent where I think they're miles off the top of the table at this stage. But Tony Docherty does have a bit of a job in his hands to try and figure out exactly what he wants from his team, how to get the best out of them. Ryan will be able to talk about them in more detail because his team beat them the other week there. But it's all's not really well at County, and I think that they'll change their aspirations from title winners to promotion hopefuls now.
One team that sticks out a mile to me, I don't know about you, Ryan, is Ayr United. Just 4 points, no wins. It would seem that it's a massive disappointment for Scott Brown given where they were last season.
Yeah, of course. I think they've got aspirations to be at the top end of the league. I think over the course of the season they will be up there, or you'd still expect them to be up there. They've still got a very good squad. I think it's just not clicked for them at the start of this season. They obviously got an early goal against us in that first game of the season, and we thought we were going to be backs up against it. It was a lovely strike for Jamie Murphy. And then we managed to turn that tie. And then I think after that, I don't know if it's a bit of confidence knocked to the part-time team. I don't know what sort of went on, but it just hasn't clicked. Obviously, the football that they're still playing. It was a lovely goal they scored at the weekend there. Right at the start of the game, you think maybe that's the one that's going to kickstart them against Ross County at home. And again, the game could have went either way. They could have lost that as well as won it. So coming away for a point, I think both managers were probably fairly pleased in the end, but it's probably more drop points at home for Scott Brown.
Just finally on the Championship, another team, Partick Thistle, massive tie against Celtic on Sunday. A boost to the coffers, as they all like to say, if nothing else, but you never know what they can do there. They seem to be getting it together under Mark Wilson, Craig.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there was a lot of turmoil at Thistle over the summer there. You know, a lot of question marks about what Brian Graham was doing. If you remember his post-match interview after, I think they were knocked out of the playoffs, and he said, if a new manager comes in, I won't be here anymore. And he's such a totemic figure. Not only are you losing like a co-manager, but you're also losing like your captain and your best striker. And I think that on top of losing Brian Graham and losing Stuart Bannigan, a lot of experience, a lot like Partick Thistle legends that have left the club at the one time there. But I think that Wilson, the reason he was taken on there is because he's good at working with young players, and that's something that Thistle have had to do given the budgetary cuts. But on the whole, signed well, and it's had to basically change the team as well. The boy in the middle of the park looks really good that they got from Lommel. He was at Celtic's B team. Sonel Lesoso. He looks really, really good as well. Like he gave an interview in pre-season, just a really positive influence. Great. I'm not a Partick Thistle fan. Listening to him, absolutely beaming just his enthusiasm for the game and how grateful he was for the opportunity. And I think there's a lot of young and enthusiastic players there that Mark Wilson's brought together. And while I don't think they're the finished article yet, and I think they're probably a decent shout to get into the top four, there is a reasonable degree of positivity around the place. And who knows, Celtic aren't playing well at the moment. You never know. You never know. Probably Celtic will win, but you never know.
That's it for the Championship. Let's take a look at League One now. And Ryan, before we go any further, imagine you've just signed for the Scottish Football Podcast. Your new teammates are me and Craig. We're bullying you into singing a song. That song is Miley Cyrus, The Climb. Off you go. Nope. Craig? Anyone?
I know that I've looked up the lyrics after the Inverness Caley Thistle manager talked about it. I've actually never listened to the song, so I'd just be singing off tune. So leave it to the professionals.
Missed opportunity for both of you. Ryan, do you have any idea what I'm talking about? And do you have a song at Arbroath as well? I'm talking, of course, about Inverness and Scott Kelliker using Miley Cyrus's The Climb as inspiration for his team this season.
Yeah, I mean, whatever he's doing, it's definitely working. I think him and Billy Mackay sort of went in there and steadied that ship. Unbelievable for last season. That I know from playing against them, they were top side, and they've definitely took it on. I'm not sure about the tactics of these songs for inspiration, but it's working. So long may it continue for Inverness. I think, as we're talking about them, I think they'll be the ones that could be champions come into the season. Obviously, I don't think Craig will be too happy with me saying that. With links to other teams in that league, but I think it's a little bit like St Johnstone. It's not just winning football; it's the style and brand that they play, and the young players they've got. Obviously, Babbage for Aberdeen, but then that we mixed with Billy Mackay still going strong, and leading on the park. So with the points, the 5 points that they've had to deducted from the start of the season, they've turned that around already. 5 wins, 1 defeat. Obviously sitting just off the top of the league, with another team sitting at the top, and Craig will probably put a wee smile on his face at that. But I think over the course of the season, I think they'll be strong, and they'll be the ones that teams will have to look out for.
Yeah, Craig, do you agree? I have to declare an interest. My middle daughter plays for their under-16s Inverness, and when I was up there, I've got a soft spot for them. So anything I say is completely biased, but they have looked quite impressive. What do you think?
Yeah, and Inverness will be the team to beat. They've that points deduction they had at the start of the season. That's not even a factor anymore. I think that 5 points that's been and gone. They've won those points back. They won them pretty comfortably. They don't concede goals. They're capable of scoring goals. They're capable of playing good football. Big boys throughout the team, big athletic boys throughout the team as well, big boys that can handle themselves, but they can play a bit of football at the same time. And I think that, similar to St Johnstone, I think that after the the roller coaster, the mountains that they have had to climb, to quote Miley Cyrus, that it's good to be supporting Inverness Caledonian Thistle again. I think you've got a likeable group of players there, a group of players who the supporters can identify with. I think that's really important, and they do seem the team to be. I know that Stennismuir are currently leading the division, and Stennismuir are the only team to have actually beaten Inverness Caledonian Thistle, and the only team to have scored against them as well, lest we forget. But Caley Thistle have just got the quality right across the board there to ultimately pull away. Nothing's ever won after 6 matches. Sadly, I feel like Donald Trump saying stop the count there. If we could just declare the League One season null and void right now, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I think over the piece, Inverness Caledonian Thistle, I think everyone who watches that division will know they're probably very likely to be the champions come the end.
Cove Rangers and Kelty Hearts a bit adrift at the bottom already. When that happens, Ryan, I think you sort of touched on this earlier when we were talking about the championship, but it can be difficult, can't it, to get out of that?
I think that's the one. It's the confidence, and you don't have any momentum, what you're sort of feeding off, and I think you're going to every game so that there's sort of 4 points adrift. I think it's Montrose that are close to them at the bottom of the league. You're going to the game going, we need to win, but there's such a long season. The biggest thing is you have to remain calm. I'm probably surprised that there was a wee gap opened up. I thought it would have been Kelty Hearts and Cove Rangers would have had more points more shared between the rest of the teams. But they are where they are at the moment, and they'll have to turn that around sharpish. Kelty had a good win against Montrose early on in the season. I thought that would have been one to kick them on, but it hasn't been the case. And there's other teams that have sort of, I think Montrose getting that crucial win at the weekend against Alloa away, that probably people didn't expect. They hung in there and then get a crucial set piece to get that 3 points. That gives them a little buffer of a gap at the bottom.
Hamilton Accies, Craig, I remember we actually spoke about them a couple of weeks ago, I think, and just under siege at the moment. Respectable mid-table spot right now. Do you think they can continue to just ignore what's going on off the park and maybe get into a playoff, something like that?
If you ignoring the stuff off the park, I don't know. I can't imagine what that's like to try to just basically train and get coached and go out and play your football when there's a complete circus that's following the club. I think it's a really difficult season. They were quite fortunate at the weekend to get a 2-2 draw with Peterhead. I think Peterhead created a lot of chances, quite profligate inside the penalty box. Peterhead will be very disappointed not to have won that, and it was only really a moment of magic in the 89th minute from Stuart McKinstry that got a point for Hamilton. So on paper, when you look through Hamilton's starting 11, you could maybe arguably say it's a stronger starting 11 than Inverness Caledonian Thistles. However, given the precariousness of that squad, the transfer embargo they're under, it takes one injury and then all of a sudden they're exposed. There's nothing really there to bring in to augment that or supplement it. So I think it's a difficult position in place. And as I said last time, and I don't like saying this, it just feels like something else as bad is going to happen to Hamilton. I can feel like a points deduction is coming down for some shenanigans or something like that. I don't think I'd say that about any other club in the SPFL, and that is going to have an impact on them just as a club and the players that are with them at the moment.
Finally, let's look at League Two, where we maybe have the best title race of the lot. Spartans and East Kilbride racing away at the top already. Ryan, I know you're a dedicated footballer. I'm not sure how much you've seen of both, but are they catching your eye?
Yeah, and I think it's probably a little bit like the Inverness and St Johnstone, so it's maybe more teams should have that style of trying to play that football, because East Kilbride and Michael McIndoe's side, Edinburgh City are definitely playing nice football. What I like about Edinburgh City is, as they get in the final third, it's not just deliveries into the box. They sort of try and work it into the 18-yard box and try and produce real quality goals and real quality chances. I think, obviously, as we were talking about before, when it comes to the winter months, who's dropping points and the difficult ties that maybe games that on paper people go, oh, there's 3 points, and then it's maybe a draw when you're going for the title wins. That's the difficult part, to remain calm, to keep doing what they've done from the start of the season that's producing results that get them to the top. If they can sort of keep their style, keep their philosophy, it'll be a great title race towards the end. I just feel that there could be a couple other teams that will be in there. Obviously, Dumbarton will sort of they'll have to say on the points just because they're a top team up there. But I think overall with Spartans, the way they're going as well, they're maybe the more, a bit like us at Arbroath. It's like we win at all costs. You can have good football, but they're the ones that probably could mix it. That I think over the course of the season, they've maybe got that one where it is the difficult ones, the difficult weather, that they can just produce results no matter what. Dougie Samuel signed obviously Mark McNulty as well, and I think he could be a crucial signing in that to maybe tip them over the edge as the favourites for the league.
Craig, momentum's very important, of course, in football. Edinburgh City, only 5 points off Stranraer, far better form. It looks almost inevitable already that they'll get back. Yeah, definitely. I'm delighted we get the chance to talk about Edinburgh City. I've got a real big soft spot for them. I was there at the weekend for their 2-2 draw against East Kilbride. Actually patched Stennismuir Kelty Hearts to go through to Meadowbank for this one because I thought it was just too big a game to miss. Edinburgh are a really good side. I think last season, pound for pound, I thought they were the best team in the SPFL. And this season, after the first game of the season, massive disappointment for that 15 points. I think it was they owed quite a small sum of money, and that instigated a liquidator event, which is an insolvency event, which is such a shame. However, since then, 8 games unbeaten. And they are just capable, as Ryan says, capable of playing really good football. Michael Mackindo, I'd put him down as one of the best coaches in Scotland at the moment. The way he has managed to get so much out of guys that you'd never really heard of, guys who'd brought in from the Lowland League, from the East of Scotland League, guys who'd maybe dropped down a level. They're such a stylish and eye-catching team to watch, and they've got such a unique way of playing. It's like they play with a 4-1-3-2 formation. I don't think there's any other team in Scotland that's playing with such an attacking formation like that. Very fortunate not to have won the game against East Kilbride at the weekend, and I think that the mood around the club is such that they're not really bothered about the points deduction anymore. They feel it's a matter of time before they move off the bottom of the table. And if you're Stranraer, if you're Annan Athletic, who look in really bad form, by the way, Edinburgh are coming for you. They said after they had beaten Stranraer, when they beat Stranraer 2-1, the first win of the season, Michael Mackindo in his post-match interview said, "This is a warning to the other clubs in the division. We're coming to hunt you." And that's exactly what they're doing. So fair play to everyone associated with the club. Starting to scare me. You sound like my wife who's from Edinburgh. She's always bigging up Edinburgh and putting down my home city of Glasgow. Anyway, we've just proved there's plenty of life outside the Premiership. Lots going on below that. Good to talk about it. It's all we've got time for, though, unfortunately. Many thanks to Ryan and Craig, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Thanks very much for listening.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.